Hey, it's Coet. Clip Studio Paint just had an update to version 1.10.10 where they added more impressive strokes with dual brushes as well as a couple of other things. I wanted to take a look and just see exactly what they're offering, maybe try out some of the new changes and just, get an idea for what's going on. So, index, what can you do with dual brushes, how to set up dual brushes, setting other brush strokes to your dual brush, blending modes, default sub-tools that make use of dual brush function. Okay, so we shouldn't have to set up anything new. Some of the default brushes look like they've been updated. Okay, what can you do with dual brushes in CSP? The dual brush function allows you to set a second brush shape to a single brush. By setting up and combining the overlapping brushes, you can create strokes with new shapes. The dual brush feature in Clip Studio Paint allows the user to, in addition to setting multiple brush tip images as they would have a regular brush, combine color and monochrome tip images while maintaining their RGB values. I don't really know what that means, but I guess we'll find out. Dual brushes aren't only for pen and brush tools, but can also be used with figure, frame border, and balloon tools as well. Okay. Note, you will not be able to edit canvases in version 1.10.9 or earlier if using dual brushes on those layers. Brush materials with dual brush settings cannot be imported to earlier. Yeah. So if you're rocking an earlier version, you can't take the new features back there and have them work. Makes sense. But I imagine this applies to even non-dual brush things. Like if you make a new non-dual brush in CSP, maybe you won't be able to import that either. Because otherwise this seems just like, yeah, of course not. Why would you have the feature in an earlier version of the software? Okay, vital information. Depending on the shape of the second brush, you can get a number of different expressions from the same brush. So here we have a grass brush. With the watercolor edge, you get like that wispy sort of thing. With the gouache, you get some of the jitter from the gouache brush. And then from the cross hatching, you get this cross hatching pattern in your grass. It looks cool, honestly. And these are all set to multiply. I don't really know what that blending mode does. Okay, they're going to tell me right now. Blending mode, even if the main brush and the second brush are combined in the same way, depending on the blending mode set, the stroke will change. So they've combined the airbrush and the lace brush. With normal, you just get a lace pattern that's a bit airy, serendipitous enough. Multiply, you get some... I don't know how to describe that distortion. It's just like... I guess just foggy. And then the subtract, where there is like where the heavy colors overlap, you get negative space. I mean, makes sense. Note the grass and lace examples used in 1 and 2 are the initial sub tools which were renewed in 1.10.10. Okay. How to set up dual brushes in EX/Pro. Dual brush is going to be set up by enabling the dual brush in the subtool detail palette. And then going to brush shape, which has a 2 there. Okay. The brush tip, spray effects, stroke, paper quality settings under brush shape are all dual brush settings. You can use the same settings for the main brush. But if you were doing that, why would you make a new one? Unless it was just to add an additional shape, I guess. Setting other brush strokes to your dual brush. You can create a dual brush freely by registering a brush tip image and its setting. However, you can easily create a dual brush by registering the stroke of your brush you already have that you like or has a good texture as a brush shape. Bring up subtool detail. Hold on. Yeah, sure. Let's give this a shot, right? So step 1, bring up the subtool detail palette of your brush you want to register. Note the subtool detail palette can be brought up by selecting from the window menu at the top of the screen or by clicking on the tool icon at the bottom of the tool property palette. Okay. Let's switch over this to this. And we'll bring this up. And I guess we'll just start from the pen and we will add a new subtool. Yes. No. Downloaded materials. Okay. We in it. This is also incorrect. I'm in the wrong spot. Oh no. Following instructions was not my strong suit. Is it in subtool palette detail? Is that where I'm supposed to be? Bring up the subtool detail palette of your brush you want to register. Okay, so let's actually, I have this brush here, which I had made in a previous life. Let's actually zoom way in on this canvas real fast. And then we will mess with this brush. And by mess with, I mean we will delete this brush. Then we will create a new one. Not from these though, dude. We will add a subtool. Not like that. Is this it? I've gone to hell. Where I don't know what I'm doing. I just want a normal brush. Okay, we'll take Suke pen. Added. Looks good. I am drawing with my mouse, so eventually when we get more into doing stuff, I'll switch over to my actual pen tablet. But for the creation of this stuff and seeing the features, I'll be using my mouse for most of it. Let's make this full opacity. Let's make the line a bit larger. I like having anti-aliasing all the way up, just to make it smooth, because if it's not all the way up, you get all these jitters on the sides, and I'm in the 21st century. Ain't no one got to deal with that. And we don't want stabilization on yet. Okay, so subtool detail palette. Is this what they're talking about? I think so. Yay? Nay? Let's expand this a little bit to get a better view of it on the screen. Yes, so here are the new brush shape things they were talking about earlier. So we've successfully completed step number 1. I'm going to take a sip real fast here. So I have, these are all of my subtool settings to begin with. Brush size currently at 100. Ink is totally full with normal blending. Color jitter, I want none of it. Anti-aliasing is all the way up. The brush shape is just pen shaped, you know? I guess. I don't know. I think it's just a pen shaped brush shape. Brush tip is a circle, makes perfect sense. Angle is set to not be adjusted with pen pressure or stroke speed. Okay. Density is, what happens if I crank density? You know, I want to crank that density all the way up. Spraying effect, no such thing. Stroke is a normal stroke gap there. Texture, untextured. Okay, so this is just a normal pen, right? Literally nothing special about it. Great pen for line work. Okay, step 2 would be, let's switch over here. Click the Add to Presets button in the Subtool palette brush shape to register. Okay. Brush shape. Add to presets. All right, ski pen is there. Did that off screen, but you can take my word for it. That was an easy instruction to handle. You can set registered brush shape by selecting the brush you want to use as the main brush from the list at the bottom of brush shape and clicking apply brush shape. Once you adjust the brush size in line with the main brush, you are done. Okay, linking to the main brush. By enabling link to main brush in brush shape, when you change the brush size of the main brush will also change accordingly. Okay, so let's go back over here and let's mess with this a bit. So I would come down to brush shape. I would activate dual brush, and let's say I wanted to take melody and apply this brush shape. Sort of. What if I wanted to apply dotted line? What if I wanted to apply spray? What does this do? So if I say 2 brush size, and I just like really lower this down. So it's made my normal brush the size of the second brush. So they need to match. They must be one and the same. Direction, multiply. What if I subtract? Oh, that's cool. So now it's subtracting the second brush from the primary brush. That's real neat. Oh, dude, that's real pretty. What does, so it's subtracting it as a transparency. It's saying make this transparent, I think. Let me just make a new layer, put that under there, make that layer red, then go back to black. And yeah, it's subtracting it as a transparency. I don't know if there's a way to make it subtract as not a transparency, but rather as the other color that I have on deck. Let's see. If I wanted to make this one white, then that one black, and then I say apply RGB value. So now it is doing the initial stroke and then putting the background color behind the initial stroke. But I do rather like the way that, how do you say, it was doing the transparency before. See, now I'm not getting that transparency on the black paint that I had applied earlier. And I think that's because they are different strokes. And if they're on the same stroke, well, then it considers every spot that it puts down transparency to be transparent. Whereas if it's over a new stroke with the same brush or an old stroke with the same brush, well, then it says, no, that already has color and we're not going to edit it, which is forward thinking. Okay, let's clear that up. So that's the subtract function. I think that's real cool. Darken. This one has just done the normal, like, what is it? The spray pattern. Makes sense to me. Lighten, I imagine. I don't know why. Why that's done what that's done. If it is lightened, then it should. I wonder if this is saying that it will only lighten the original stroke. Is that what you're saying? No. What if I apply the RGB value and I make this black again? Now what do we have? I don't know if I understand this one all that much. So far, subtract I see a major use for. It already has a use case in my brain. Screen, same as they've all been. Overlay. I wonder if this will look different if I do like this. So overlay must only apply it to the things visible on the original stroke. Okay. Color dodge. Don't know about you. Color burn is interesting. Linear burn brings us back to the substroke. Hard mix, I don't really understand. If I apply RGB, negative, nothing there. Height linear, I also don't understand. So right now, subtract is the one that I'm understanding most. Add glow makes sense. Subtract makes sense. Multiply also makes sense, ish, because it only they need to overlap. Both of the brushes need to overlap for multiply, is what I'm understanding there, and then it will paint the overlap. Whereas subtract, where the brushes overlap, it will render that as transparent and then keep everything else. And then add glow is the initial brush stroke with the sub brush stroke behind it, I believe. We'll see. I'm going to play with this a little bit. Brush tip. Stroke. Spraying effect. If we increase... Oh, it's too many particles. The particles were too large. Okay. Congratulations. Now we have very large particles here. Let's actually go back up to brush shape, and then we'll go to subtract. And this should look pretty rad, huh? That's interesting. It's not as cool as it was, but it's definitely neat. I like how they appear to change as you draw. Like the ones just behind you, just because it's throwing out new stuff. Like, is this even legible? Like, what if I wanted to say hi? Not very legible. So we'd go back to spraying effect. We'd reduce the size of these a bit more. Let's just keep it at like 10. Yeah, I like that. And then let's actually go back up to brush settings up here. Let's change this brush shape to, let's go watercolor. So now we have that watercolor edge. Or what would happen if we changed it to brush or bumpy? It's interesting. Or better yet, let's do the laced ribbon with the dots. And then let's go to brush shape. And let's go, instead of those dots, let's go laced ribbon melody. So now we should have the melody attached to the laced ribbon. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Instead of subtract, let's do normal, which just overlays them on top of each other. multiply, which only draws where both lines are visible. So you get like this textured, I guess you would say, this textured melody bar, which is cool. Add glow, which is a lot like normal. Darken, which is what it is. Lighten, screen, overlay. I don't understand. I think you need some transparency, like built into your brush to make overlay work. Color dodge, burn, linear, hard, height. Oh, those are thick lines. Interesting. All right, let us stick to multiply then. Let us change this brush tip to a different material. Oh, I forgot this materials menu. There's so many materials. Let's change this to... Let's go with this rough crosshatch. So now only in places where they both overlap will you get this crosshatching. Okay. And the thickness is weird. Oh, that's weird. It only applies to where the stroke has already been. And if you just go in this like circle, it'll eventually fill in the lace pattern from the first brush stroke. That's kind of cursed, but interesting. Brush to density. Let's bring this back to 100. So make it softer. I want that at 100 though. Spraying effect. There is no spraying effect for this one. What happens if we turn a spraying effect on? That's interesting looking. If we just crank up the particle size and immediately crash my computer, that'd be bad. Okay. Let's get the particle size back down to the normal. Well, that seems reasonable. But the particles are just so large that they're overlapping immediately, and I'm just instantly getting the lace pattern that I'm looking for. I want to change the original brush shape back to the normal pen shape. And so now we have that spraying pattern, but with the cross hatch. However, we can go back to spraying effect, turn that over, and it should just be a line, just a normal pen line that follows the brush shape there. If we turn on the spraying effect, we get this more textured looking pen line, which I think kind of looks nice. So let's take this down to about the size I would normally use for drawing. Oh, something's up with the tip on this. Why is it like this? Link to main brush. Brush shape is there. Brush tip should be circular. Direction. I do not want to dynamically adjust thickness. Under no circumstances is this something that I wish for. I am back to using my pen just because I'm working on this one screen again. Okay. spraying effect. If I do this, well, then you get a real weird brush there. Okay. So this brush shape has the same as the pen. There's nothing too special about it. The brush tip has the cross-hatching texture to it. Has a light spraying effect, but we can really crank that up. I don't know what exactly this looks like, but it's like very grungy. If I were to draw with this, if I go to a size of 20, it's just like a really nice textured image, I suppose. It's pretty interesting. And this is like almost certainly the most boring use of these features. But I'm not trying to make anything particularly automated or fast. I just like drawing on the weekends. So this is about as much as I would use these features for. It's to make a cool textured pen like this that follows the rules of a tool that I already liked, but with some interesting side stuff going on. Man, technology is wild. Control Z, all of that. Okay, the stroke, spraying effect, I want to reduce these particle sizes again. And then the stroke. How does adjusting this affect everything? Get a little bit of a more spread out image. Or spread out texture. If I turn on continuous spraying, that means if I hover, yeah, that'll slowly fill in. So I don't want this. I just want normal line. One random cycle. I don't know what all this is. 2 ribbon. Brush tip transformations according to stroke. I don't understand. 2 blend brush tips with Darken. Interesting. Texture. We can use this as a texture, which is the primary thing that I would probably be using it for. But we can also add an additional texture to this. So if we take like the canvas texture here, and we go brush tip, and we say our spraying effect, we turn off the spraying effect. So now we're back to the actual texture. We should turn this up a bit, back to 100. So now we have that cross hatching again. But in addition to that, we have this canvas texture, which does apply stuff to it. Oh my goodness, this is a lot. I kind of really like this. So it's still following the shape of the first brush, which is that pen. But it's on multiply. I don't know why I said it like it is on multiply. So we're only seeing that we can do this. Alternatively, we can subtract. Fascinating. Add the second brush as a glow. However, if you do this add glow, you don't get the change in the texture based on the size of the brush. I wonder why that is. So let's edit this. Let's texture this one with the, say we'll texture it with drawing paper. And we will actually go to brush shape. We'll turn off dual brush real fast just so that I can understand a bit more what I'm doing with these textures on this brush. Texture density. Crank that. So it's a highly dense texture. We are drawing on drawing paper with a pen. Emphasize density, no. Scale ratio, we want to bring that back to as it was, which I believe was at 0. Maybe? It was not at 0. So we should bring that to 50. Hopefully that's right. Brightness of the texture versus darkness of the texture. This should also probably be at 0 because we want a good split. Contrast, also at 0. Texture mode, subtract, multiply, compare, overlay. Interesting. But normal is normal. Although multiply is pretty cool. Then you draw over it to multiply it more. But normal lets you actually draw well enough. Okay. So this is just the textured pen. So let's take this textured pen. Let's turn back on the dual brush, which is on add glow, and we can see the dual brush beneath it. Go to subtract. You can see that dual brush subtracting from what is already there. And it's a hard subtraction too. It does not care about the first brush's textures. Add glow. We check multiply, showing us only what is there already. And normal, which puts them both under each other. But it still doesn't match the size of the dual brush with the size of the main brush, which is weird to me. I don't think it's working correctly. Unless this doesn't adjust based off of pressure, which would be unfortunate. Let's see. Dual brush, direction, normal, brush size, link to main brush. If I adjust the size of all of these, they're linked together. And I want to apply the pen brush shape to the second brush shape. Yes? I think so. And then the brush tip, we leave a circle. But this time, let us make this one way less dense. Like, let's throw this one at 50. And then let's texturize this with a, let's go with a mortar texture. That could be fun. Make that dense. Make it bright. With a lot of contrast. With not a lot of contrast. We just tested these texture functions before, but I'm like, maybe if I change it this time, it'll look better. No. Let's see. Texture mode, we want to subtract. But this only subtracts from the original. So let's subtract from this one. Let us go to brush tip and let's link to main brush size. But here it doesn't matter what the main brush does. It's just always there. So this surely must not be on normal. Otherwise it's not going to adjust dynamically with brush texture. Or brush, excuse me. It will not dynamically adjust to the density of my brush. Because even though it's linked to brush size, although my brush size is adjusted based on the pressure I am putting on the tablet, it should say somewhere. Where is that? Stroke, texture. Actually, where is that? Is that just a default thing? This requires analysis. Anyways, the size of my brush is adjusted with the amount of pressure I put on the tablet. However, the brush 2 is not. So, if I do not have that brush on something dependent on the original brush, it will always maintain its size. So color dodge, color burn, linear burn, hard mix, height linear, multiply, subtract 2 probably, right? Yeah, subtract. Those all work. So we'll keep that on multiply. So this is the brush without the second brush shape in it. Interesting texture. This is the one with the second brush shape in it, which is significantly more texturized. And then we can apply, I imagine that these functions down here apply to everything. Although, turn on watercolor to add an edge, combine this texture for various effects. I cannot enable watercolor edge on this. If I disable brush shape, or second brush shape, can I? I can. So if you have 2 brush shapes, you can't enable watercolor edge. You cannot enable erase. You can enable correction and add stabilization though. So let's crank the stability. Not even the best circle I've drawn. Okay. So very, very smooth lines. The size still changes as desired. Good stuff. Taper. What does taper do? Change how much line follows when the drawing is releasing pen pressure. So we want this at a minimum. Yeah, those are good lines. Good lines. Oh, too much stab. Okay, but I would take that all the way down. Starting and ending we can adjust. Anti-overflow. Do not cross lines of reference layer. That is for vector graphics. Okay. So beyond that, we have the regular brush size stuff, which can be edited like normal. Ink. It's normal opacity settings that can all be tweaked individually. Personally like this up and around 80 when I'm sketching. Blending mode is how it blends with itself. So let's actually crank this up again. 60. It'll only darken. However, we can say I would like this to only lighten. And because it is lighter than the transparency, it does nothing. However, I should be able to do this. No, I've botched this because I have it on lighting mode. Normal. Do this. What was I doing? I've totally forgotten. It's Control Z. And we're back on the normal layer as well. Yeah, so this is all just normal stuff. Normal stuff. Color jitter. Not a fan. Anti-aliasing up there. If I kill anti-aliasing, we get a very jittery line. Well, it looks kind of nice with all of these, with all of this in it. We can draw over that to add a bit more. Then we go into the brush shape settings again. So that's all of that. I feel like I've probably skipped ahead, but they said, hey, go in and look at the stuff, and I went in and looked at the stuff. But let's bring back up that bit and continue to read. Okay, linking to main brush size. By enabling link to main brush size, you change the brush size of the main brush. The second brush will change accordingly. No, this did not work. Notes. Link to main has also been added to spraying effect. Particle size in Clip Studio Paint V1010 is to be set for both of them. So did I? Let's see. Let's do normal. Brush. Our spraying effect. Brush tip. Brush shape. Link to main brush size. Something here is up. So, one of these things is not like the other. I don't want to tell you no because I'm misunderstanding. But it seems like no. However, it does look like if I change this, the size of the texture changes? Oh no, dude, I don't understand this at all. Or actually, no, it's saying it changes because it doesn't know how to display very large sizes differently from smaller sizes. I understand that. Okay, anyways. Dual brush blending modes. The dual brush blending modes can be set to direction under brush shape from any of the following 13 blending modes. Applying RGB values. Check apply RGB value if you'd like to apply the color or monochrome brush tip image to the secondary brush as is. If unchecked, the alpha value of the second brush stroke will be blended but will not affect the color of the brush tip image. Blending mode examples here. Main brush, second brush. Okay, and this second brush does have different colors attached to it. And this is with apply RGB on. So normal, that's pretty cool. You get like a circular chain there. Multiply. And this is without it on. So only the things that are the same color make it through. Add glow. It adds the lighter color to the existing line. Subtract gives you the negative where the sections interact. Darken does what darken do. Lighten do what lighten do. Screen, I still don't understand after years of digital art. Color burn looks kind of nice. Hard light, hard mix, linear burn. Okay, these make sense. I'm understanding. Default subtools that make use of dual brush function. Let's take a look at the default subtools that make use of the dual brush function along with their settings. Okay, the pencil tool has been revamped. It has been reinvigorated. The main brush, which is set up to draw lines and letters easily, and the second brush, which has a diffused look, like when a pencil is dragged flat against paper, are set up to switch in and out when the pencil is tilted. Okay, let's bring that up. I'm in. We're exiting out of the subtool menu, that cursed menu. I am over at the pencil tool. I've clicked it. I've increased the size. Okay. So this is me drawn at like a giant angle to the screen, and now I've tilted the pen straight up. Oh, and it is straight on. Yo, that's real cool, actually. So this is like I'm sketching, I'm doing the shading thing, and now I'm making my like actual line. And surrounding that shaded area. A little hard to control, but like actually like really cool. Okay, I see you, CSP. So let's look at what is special about this pencil by opening up the subtool palette and taking a look. So we have the brush shape, which is pencil, presumably. And the brush tip, which is this textured tip. Why are there multiple? Have all these gone together into making this one tip? I think that's what that means. It's in a vertical direction. It's angled. It's not flipped, and it's relatively dense. And if I crank this density, you ruin the magic that they have created. No spraying effect. There is a wide gap, and it has correct velocity input on, which makes velocity change for tool dynamics consistent across devices. And the brush tip is blended with Darken. So every time you go over it, it becomes a little less opaque. Texture has the rough paper texture because it's a pencil, makes perfect sense. And brush shape 2. Okay, so you have brush shape 2. It is a dual brush, normal, apply RGB value. This one doesn't actually have a brush shape attached to it, I don't think. So let's like go back to the brush I made, which is this one here, which also doesn't appear to have a brush shape attached to it. If I apply this, oh, it's so scuffed. I don't understand. All right, so we're back in the pencil subtool. It has normal direction, brush size is there, and it's linked to the main brush. Now the tip, though, has 2D flip horizontal set to random. Brush density is more dense than the original brush. However, what makes it do the thing when very technical term, what makes it change when I change the angle of my pen? Is my question. Because that's fascinating. Brush tip. Angle 180. Is this what does it? Set the angle of the brush tip. No. I'm investigating. Not finding much though. What is this? Adjust this setting with dynamics such as pressure or stroke speed. Okay, so this one is adjusted by tilt and tilt alone. It's all coming together. So the more horizontal it becomes, the more the settings are. And the more vertical it is, the less the settings are. Okay, so let's see. If I exit out of this and I go back to my pen and I go to brush shape and I say adjust the setting with dynamics such as pen pressure, stroke speed, and I say I want to adjust this with pen pressure, and I set this to normal, they should overlap perfectly. He's starting to believe. These software engineers really are something, you know? Okay. But now I'm back in hell. So I'm going to fix this a little bit. I've set this to normal. I want to do nothing else with this. Because this isn't... Is this the pen that I was messing with? I think it was. Yeah, because we have the texture on this one. But I can take this now and I can say I want this to be an airbrush. I'll apply that shape. The brush tip should be a material. I'll let for that materials bar to load. And we'll say we want it to be charcoal. Say we want a spraying effect. Want those particles to be a little large. And we can adjust the spraying effect with size with pen pressure as well. We can give that a minimum value so that there's always a spray effect of some degree. We can make that continuous. We want that charcoal to also have the bird's eye maple texture, because why not? And we want the texture mode to be on normal. And let's set this entire thing to add I kind of like add glow there. And the entire thing should be very heavily anti-aliased. Okay, and that looks like this, which is fascinating. But I could also go brush shape, do this, add tilt, and remove pen pressure. And then at high tilt, we do this, and then we come down like so. And we go, okay. Yeah, so now we get just a massive spraying effect there, then a very small spraying effect there, or I guess a brush shape effect. But we can come in here and we can remove pen pressure as a thing that affects that. We can apply tilt, and then just like before, I want to remove the minimum. Okay. So very, very spray heavy. Not very spray heavy. Nice! Okay, we've learned. It only took an hour, but we're getting somewhere. Switch back over to the browser. Okay. Brush tool, watercolor. This is a combination of the main brush, which has a blotchy feel, and the uneven diffuse brush. By setting the height linear blending mode, the overall density of the main brush is expressed with some of the white uneven parts of the second brush bleeding through. Okay, makes sense to me. This combines two different types of diffused brush. Since the dual brush blending mode is said to add glow and apply RGB value is on, only the parts where the two brush strokes overlap are randomly brightened. Okay, and then they've edited the zipper. This is a ribbon brush where the main brush is one side of the zipper and the brush tip image of the fastened zipper registered on the second brush. Because apply RGB value is turned on, where the dual brush is turned on, or when the dual brush is turned on, the main brush stroke will be hidden. And you can easily switch between the two by toggling dual brush on and off. So I would make that visible in the tool property palette. Okay. In addition to the above brushes and other subtools that make use of dual brush function, that has been added in Clips Studio Paint version 1.10.10. For further details on the new subtools, please refer to the following article, and I have that article open, which is the upgraded brush tools. So, in Clip Studio Paint version 1.10.10, the initial brush type subtools, pen, pencil, brush, blend, decoration have been updated. We also added new subtools that make use of the new dual brush and color jinter functions to the lineup. If you already have Clip Studio Paint installed, the initial subtools that were registered previously will not change once you have updated to the new version. When you update, only the new brushes will be added, leaving your previously registered brushes as they are. If you would like to add the updated brushes, select Add from Default from the menu at the top left of the subtool palette. Okay. Subtools that have been removed as initial tools, as well as subtools from version 1.10.5 and earlier whose settings have changed except for brush size, can be downloaded from Clip Studio Assets. If you are installing Clip Studio for the first time on version 1.10.10, or if you reverted to the tools to default and restarted the program, the way the brush tools generated and grouped structured will have changed. Oh my goodness. I guess. Okay, so these are the newly added subtools. We have the pencil, which we checked out earlier. The brush tool, watercolor, wet wash. Let's check out some of these new tools a little bit. So let's switch over to the full screen. And let's go to wet wash, which is under watercolor. Here. That is a CPU heavy brush. But what do you do? Okay, so it kind of does this interesting thing where it lightens up the areas where it has already been. Kind of mirrors the watercolor feel. Probably more so than previous watercolor brushes, in all earnesty, which I find interesting. Okay. After that, we have watercolor splash. which is like if I were to flick some watercolor on the paper. Easy enough to understand. Okay. After that, we have thick paint in the thick paint section. Thick oil paint. Now, oil paint is one of the few actual mediums that I've used IRL. It's probably the only one that I would say is a go-to for me. So I'm going to be super critical. Let's get some colors. I did not actually get colors as I said I would. Okay. So red paint is out here. It does look thick. I don't know if you can see the texture there, but there is definitely a texture to be had that makes it look almost as though it's refracting light off of it because of a difference in height. Which is fascinating. And if we put some blue over that, there's a little bit of texture there when I ease up on the pen. However, that isn't necessarily how that would work. I think for the most part, this brush is pretty cool. I wouldn't say it's a very good facsimile of a oil painting brush, but I can definitely see what they were going for with it. That's pretty neat. Okay, so after that, they have India ink in brush pen, or just it's called brush pen under India ink. We'll go to 20 for this, and we will kill all of that. Okay, I see what you're doing. You wrote some kanji for this one, just to make your point. It feels good. This feels like a great pen, actually. I'm drawing with this one. I'm not gonna open up the settings and take a look at everything, but as far as like pens are concerned, this one feels fantastic. And it's probably not because the stabilization is cranked to 11, if I had to guess. Yeah, no, that one's great. And then they have the dry ink. It's all right. Reminds me a little bit of chalk. Let's see. Watery ink, which I expect to be just that. Yeah, this is one I will never ever use. Because, like, it's fine, but, like, unless, here's a question. Let's take the brush pen and let's say, let's write something very crisp. Potato. Let's take the watery ink, switch the color on this. Yeah, it's definitely not going to cover up what I've already created. And if I had to guess, it would be because, let's turn on the subtool palette here. It would be because, yeah, they're not even taking stock of the new textures there. It has color burn on the texture and multiply on the blending mode. Okay. So it should blend with other colors well. I've just made the unfortunate mistake of choosing blue there. Yeah, those definitely blend. Interesting. I don't like it. to put it succinctly. Not a fan of that one. Okay, wet blotting ink I suspect will be cool. However, I have no idea what I will end up using it for. Let's go back here. Wet blotting ink. Take this to 100. Oh, it also has the same effect that that watercolor brush did, where it kind of goes over itself with a subtract, but it also does let you darken. This one's weird. I don't think I'll ever find a use for it, but like it also has this texture underneath of it that makes it look like your paper is absorbing too much water, and I hate that. Like, it's neat, but it's the kind of thing that would drive me insane. Okay. And then you have a bunch of decoration tools here. Which seem fine. I'm not too interested. Okay, the felt pen was updated. Following initial subtools will not be added to the subtool palette in the update. If you need any of these brushes, you can add them yourself by selecting them at the menu at the top left of the subtool palette and add from default. In addition to the initial subtools shown here, the sizes and other parameters of some other brushes have been adjusted. So felt pen looks more like a felt pen. Mechanical pencil has been updated. I presume they added more jitter. The pen tool charcoal looks a bit more grungy, which is cool. Crayon looks like they've added some of that classic crayon texture to it. Pastels, I don't know what they did, but I already kind of like the pastel as is, so I'm sure that's only going to be better. Although I'm looking at it and I see this spot there with some like extreme emphasis on that blue. So I'm not sure about that. Chalk looks great in that image. The oil paint, I hope, is better. And then I don't care about the decorations too much. Although the patterns are cool. I'll definitely use them or play around with them some. Okay, 4 brush subtools except those listed above. The subtool settings, including initial subtools that have been made public on the Clip Studio assets, have been changed. Initial subtools for new installs. Matching the cursor with the shape and orientation of your brush. The brush tip shape can now be set as the shape cursor displayed on the canvas when a drawing tool such as brush, eraser, or figure is selected. The cursor can now also be made to change according to the pressure, tilt, orientation, movement, and direction of the pen or brush. Okay, so it more accurately reflects what is actually going on the paper. That's great. Great change. Changing the shape of cursor to match the brush shape. You can now set this from File, Menu, Preferences, Dialog, Cursor, Shape of Cursor. Okay. Excellent. For dual brushes, the brush tip image of the main brush will be used. For brushes that contain multiple brush tip images, the first brush tip image will be used as the cursor. Makes sense. For spray brushes, the cursor will be displayed as a circle. So no matter if you're spraying some wacky pattern, it's always going to be a circle. Makes sense. You can change the cursor to match the pressure, tilt, orientation, and movement direction of your pen or brush. Do not, okay. In the preference dialogs, choose from the 4 following settings to change the brush cursor. Do not change orientation, size, thickness, orientation, size, thickness, and orientation when pen is hovering. That's extremely cursed. They have a little video here. Does not change, makes perfect sense. Change direction is extremely cursed. Change size, thickness, and direction. Oh, I can't do this, dude. Change size and direction while pen is hovering. Oh no. No, that's great. Those are all great features. So this was looking at the new update for 1.10.10. I like Clip Studio a lot. I purchased the full thing, and I haven't been disappointed. And I hope they continue to move out good stuff like this. In all honesty, these updates were kind of small. They weren't particularly significant. However, I'm sure there are some nerds that love the creation and manipulation of brushes more than the actual creation of the artwork. And I'm sure them coupled with the community that actually enjoys using those brushes to create a finished product can make some really intriguing things. Also just people who enjoy both evenly. I'll play with it some. Maybe I'll refine some of my sketching brushes, but I don't know to what degree an update like this will help me. I don't know. What are your thoughts? How do you feel about 1.10.10? I'm happy with it, mostly because an update's an update, right? Here's to 1.10.11. Till next time. Ciao.